Did you know that 80% of recreational runners will deal with at least one injury in their running career? 80%. That's 8 in 10 people of runners will have a running injury. But why? Let's talk about what the biggest cause of running injuries is and how to fix it and how to adapt better so that way you don't have to be part of that statistic. Hey there, I'm Dr. Abby Siler, a physical therapist, runner, and a pelvic floor specialist. I help women runners in their 20s to 60s and beyond become the best runners they can and stay injury-free with little effort. All right, so let's start with getting familiar with what the most common cause of running injuries are. Like I said, 80% of recreational runners will deal with at least one injury in their career, and usually it's more than one injury. And understanding what the biggest cause of running injuries is will help you better figure out what you need to do to help prevent them and how in the future you can make your training better to not have injuries and not be part of that staggering 80% percentage. So here is the key concept. Most running injuries are a result of doing too much too soon with too little recovery. I like to call it the drunken principle. You drink too much too fast and you have crappy recovery, you're going to have a hangover. But keep in mind that many people want to blame their running injury on their shoes, or because they didn't stretch enough, or because you forgot to wear your compression sleeves. Those all can contribute to injuries, but the biggest reason is doing too much too soon with too little recovery. Our bodies, running is a repetitive sport, and our bodies need time to adapt. And most running injuries, unless they're traumatic in nature, are caused by overuse. Okay, what does it actually mean, though, that you did too much too soon with too little recovery? Too much means too much time spent running. You did too many total daily or weekly miles, which is your volume, at too much intensity, running hard or running fast or doing too much speed work, your intensity. You can do too much of both or too much of one or the other and still have too much. Too soon means you're running too many days or weeks or months. You're running too much. Your frequency is too high for what your body is able to handle at this given time. And then finally, too little recovery. This means not enough rest time, rest days, quality sleep, quality nutrition, or recovery weeks, down training weeks throughout your training cycle. So that, with those three things, that leads to that 80% number of recreational runners who will experience a running injury each year. So while you might not have an injury this year, 80%, 8 in 10 runners will have a running injury any given year. That's a lot. And this too much, too soon, too little recovery is almost always the reason why. However, I want to give a little disclaimer here. Running injuries are complex, multifaceted things. This is true. This reason is one of the big reasons, but there are a lot of different things that go into this that creates a running injury. So keep that in mind. Okay, let's dive a little bit deeper. So your body has an amazing ability to adapt. Your bones, muscles, and tendons can become stronger and more resilient than they are as you sit here today by adaptation, by training, and by resting. So that's what adaptation is. By giving your body a stress, such as running, strength training, and then pairing that stress with recovery, you're able to build a stronger body. So appropriate stress plus appropriate recovery equals adaptation. And then let's apply this to our running. So let's look first what running actually is. When running is broken down, it is essentially just a series of single leg hops. When we are running, all we're really doing is continuously hopping from one foot to the other over a certain amount of time or distance. Seems innocent enough. However, each one of those hops on a single leg that we do can produce between 4 to 10 times your body weight in forces per step. That sounds like a scary number. It's not, because we train our bodies how to do it. But it's important to understand that this stress alone isn't inherently bad. Stress is not bad. Those forces through our leg, each time, that 4 to 10 times our body weight of force through our leg, it's okay. Our bodies were made to withstand that. Our bodies were made to run. We just have to make sure we're doing what we need to support our bodies. So it means that we need to dose the amount of stress, the amount of running that we are doing appropriately, and pair it with the appropriate amount of recovery. So as we just learned, doing that, our bodies will have adaptation and become stronger and more resilient. However, on the other side, if we don't adhere to the formula of appropriate dose, appropriate recovery equals adaptation, and add too much stress, too much running done too soon, it will result in an injury. 8 times out of 10, 80% of the time, it'll result in an injury. So too much stress and plus appropriate recovery is going to equal injury. So that it's not all or nothing. If you have too much stress but do the appropriate recovery, you're still probably going to end up in injury. If you do the appropriate amount of stress for your body but too little recovery, you're going to end up in injury. You have to have the appropriate amount of stress and the appropriate amount of recovery in order to prevent injury and have a nice adaptation to running and become a better runner. Which means both components of this formula need to be present in order to avoid injury and instead result in this desired holy grail of adaptation that we're after. Adaptation being bones, muscles, tendons that are strong and capable of withstanding the stresses of running, which then lead to a body that is able to enjoy running without pains, soreness, and injuries constantly popping up 80% of the time. AKA a strong and injury-free running foundation if we follow this formula correctly. So, as a side note, this is why I am so against the hustle culture that promotes sacrificing sleep and waking up early to get your runs in. All you're doing by sacrificing sleep is sacrificing your recovery, which not only increases your injury likelihood, but it also doesn't allow you to get as much out of your workouts as you'd be performing them in a fatigue state. It's all good to wake up earlier, which is what I do. I just go to bed early. My husband laughs at me all the time because I'm in bed by 9 o'clock, but I'm getting up at 5 or 5:30 to get my workout in before my workday begins, before my 6-year-old son gets up. So while I'm getting up early, I'm not sacrificing the amount of sleep I get each night and the recovery that I give my body in order to get those runs in, because my body will pay for it, my runs will pay for it. So keep that in mind. Early morning hustle is great, but just because someone else does it doesn't mean it's right for you. Okay, so there's a tricky part when it comes to this stress concept for many runners to understand. In running, there are two main types of stress that are involved. There is the stress on the musculoskeletal system, think bones, muscles, tendons, as we've been discussing. But then there's also stress on the cardiorespiratory system. Think your lungs, blood vessels, your body's ability to deliver oxygen to muscles, etc. And often our cardiorespiratory system adapts faster than our musculoskeletal system. So while we might feel like we're ready to progress in our running from a cardiorespiratory standpoint, because that's what we think of when we're running, is being able to run better, our musculoskeletal system probably isn't ready to be stressed and ready to progress on like our cardio system is. So here is a cycle that tends to happen. When our cardiorespiratory system improves and we feel ready to push it more, we start to run. Running starts to feel good. So we ramp up our volume, our intensity, and our frequency, and then pain, soreness, or injury occurs because we're ramping up too soon, too fast, with not enough recovery for that. And then we take time off to rehab our injury, or just to feel a little better. Then we start running again. We start feeling good. We ramp up before we're ready to. So it's a vicious cycle. It goes in a circle over and over and over again because we're not letting our musculoskeletal system, which is the part of the body that gets injured, that we get that soreness from, is not ready to progress quite as fast as our cardiorespiratory system or the rest of our body feels ready to. Hope everything's making sense. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or have any experience with this cycle of injury, rest, start running, feel good, injury, rest, over and over again. All right, so finally, a quick recap. The most common reason running injuries occur is by doing too much, too soon, with too little recovery. The only way to adapt well is by adhering to the formula: appropriate stress plus the appropriate amount of recovery equals adaptation. Be aware, finally, you need to be aware as you are running, as you are progressing, that your cardiorespiratory system is going to adapt faster than your musculoskeletal system. So our goal is going to be in coming videos to learn what the game plan is going to be and how to prevent and take practical steps to avoid injuries and become the best runner that you can be and not be part of that 80% statistic. So coming up in future videos, we are going to go over our 4 main components of a game plan for running. We're going to discuss in depth walking, running, strength training, and recovery weeks. There's also going to be a few bonus components in there that are definitely worth mentioning and worth their own videos on, such as sleep, running form, nutrition and hydration, cross training, warming up. All of these combined is what's going to make you the strongest runner and run injury free and have a great running foundation. Stay tuned next week. We're going to start this game plan with walking and why it's so important.